You are a very strong and determined woman. Right, Mom? Yes, my son. They have no control over you. Repeat that. Repeat that. They have no control over you. They have no control over me. And as you're walking to them, and as you come upon them, I want you to say to them, get out of my way. Get out of my way. Say it, Mom. And she said it. And then she continued to walk into the arms of Joe and Ed. And my mom started to cry and cry and cry and cry. And I understood by her telling me that why she had never held us closely. Because while we were her children, she had 4 boys. And my name is Louis. My older brother's name is or was Al. My younger brother's name were Eddie and Joe. We had different names. We were different beings. But in her prime of thoughts, what we all held in common were that we were males. We were males. And in her early years, what had been imprinted on her mind was males are dangerous people. Males will hurt you. Okay? Babies are imprinted. We're all imprinted with these thoughts. And we either work them out or we carry them with us through life there. And after she cried, she took me in her arms and held me as I had never been held before by my mother. Okay? As I had never been held by, very good for it, as I had never been held by my mother. That was the best. I mean, I'm glad that my mother fed me. I'm glad that my mother clothed me. You know, I'm also so glad that my mother held me in a loving way. Because that memory of being held by my mother has and will stay with me throughout my life. And I always wanted to pay my mother back for all the good things she did, but she never allowed us to pay her back the way we wanted to, which is to let her know that she was loved. And at that moment, she took in the fact that she was loved. At that moment. Now, go back. If you live well, if you wish to live well, practice lying. I wish that my mother had shared this with me years before. Because we could have had such loving, loving embraces years before. I could have felt the love years before. And I know my wife loves me, but boy, when she says, I love you, and holds my hand, that goes in so much deeper. When my children say, I love you, and they touch me, that goes in so much deeper. And I say, oh, I wish she had told me this. So we were practicing this at the last years of our lives. One more thing, and let's just throw it open. I have a lot of things, but I'm not going to go through them here. One of the, okay? Yeah. One of the my students, now stop. One of my students in my death and dying class always ask me, do you believe in reincarnation? You know, this is very common. Do you believe in reincarnation? And my response is, well, maybe, and we'll find out later. But I tell them, as I've told myself and learned myself there, is that we have an opportunity to reincarnate while we're still alive. And reincarnate basically means you go and you come back. You lead another life. And I say to my students, as I say to myself, during the time that we are alive, okay, we have hurt and been hurt. We have accumulated pain, hurt, resentment, anger, what I said before about Jacob, that keeps us somewhat closed up there. It keeps us filled up with what I call the negative forces. Okay? And when you're angry, if I'm really angry, And my wife, which I basically stopped being after 32 years of marriage. I'm a slow learner, and it took me time, even though I'm a PhD, I'm a slow learner there. When my wife taught me something very interesting, I get angry at my wife, and I'm just going with that, and she looks at me. She doesn't respond with anger. She looks at me and says, "Louis, who am I?" Now, before she asked me that, she's an object of my anger, my resentment, my frustration there. I'm forgetting who she is. She's just an object to me. And she says, "Who am I?" "Louis, look at me." You're not looking at me. Look into my eyes. And I look into her eyes, and she says, "Louis, I am your devoted, loving wife. I am the mother of your children. Do you want to say that to me? Okay? Do you want to say that to me?" And the answer is no. But she said, "Louis," because my wife is also a therapist, and she's worked as a social worker in Chicago public school systems and also in other systems there. And she also taught preschool. And she taught preschool on the west side of Chicago. If you know Chicago, it was a pretty rough neighborhood. It still is. It's a pretty rough neighborhood. And kids would come to school the first day, and Paul at first was going to try to teach him something, just like colors or letters, simple stuff. And the kids would not be, learning ready. They weren't being ready to learn. And Paul is a pretty creative person, my wife, but the kids were not being ready to learn. And she realized the reason they weren't being ready to learn is that their minds were in another place. What had happened on the way to school when someone had bullied them or asked them for lunch money, or their father had yelled at them, or the mother did something else there. They were emotionally in distress. Okay? And she realized they were coming to school with this emotional distress, and they were acting that out in the class, because they couldn't act it out with a bully who's digging it. They couldn't tell their mother and father, who they're dependent on, So they came to class full of these emotions which are running crazy. And she said, "I cannot teach them until they process this emotion." So the first thing that she had them do was join hands with each other and, push, pull. Do you feel angry? Push, pull. There were rules. You couldn't hit. You couldn't cross over. But, she wouldn't use these words, process that anger. But, come on. Get it out. Get it out. Get it out. Get it out. Are you feeling good? Okay, scream, yell. And they would do that, and then they'd quiet down. Okay? And if they weren't quiet enough, what she did, we learned this in our home too, what she would then do is go to the walls in a room like this, and she put a blank paper up there, and give them some pens and pencils and crayons, and she'd say, whatever you're feeling, which doesn't allow you, she used, different language on young children, which doesn't allow you to be in this room with this one learner. I want you to do it to the paper. So they go to the paper, and more often than not, the kids would take colors and just go like that and that, or take a house and destroy the house there, or have their father and mother and take black colors and write it over there. They have released the negative emotions which are keeping them from learning. I know now, a lot of my students come to class, and I have all the subject matter I want to teach them. I only have an hour and a half, or 3 hours, and I only have 15 weeks, and we want to get through all this material. God forbid we don't get through all this material. A lot of my students are not ready to learn. Most of my students are working, 1, 2, or 3 jobs in order to be able to go to college there. They're open late at night there. A lot of them are dealing with stuff in their lives which is driving them somewhat crazy there. They're not ready to learn. They might seem, but their mind is somewhere else. So go back to my wife. And my wife, I don't want to say this to my wife, but the truth is, all the stuff that I accumulated, which are now venting at that moment, are real. And my wife cannot just say to me, "Louis, be calm," because inside of me, I'm not calm. She can't say to me, "Don't be angry," because inside of me, I'm not angry. So she says, "Louis, before we can engage in a husband and wife conversation, I want you to do something with that anger, whatever it is there, or you're pissed off or something like that, or your chairperson said that, or you're frustrated at your students. I want you to let that go so you can be with me now. And if you let that go, let that die, there's space for me to come in. But if you're full of this anger and this angst and frustration, there's no space there to allow my love to come in, because it's filled up with this other stuff. It's like taking in a lot of food, and then, a daughter or someone, they're young, they eat this, and mom or dad would say, broccoli. And they would say, we have no room, I'm all filled up. Okay? So as they got older, they learned to eat less, so there's room for the broccoli. So I had a process. And the truth is, each one of us, it's impossible on planet Earth not to pick up hurt, anger, resentment, so on and so forth, whether we're aware of it or not. And sometimes it's just in little doses. But we all know, let water drip on a rock for a number of years and that rock will split, even though each drop of water doesn't seem to have much weight to it. We pick that up, and then all of a sudden, I don't know, we're saying things to people we love, which comes to the conclusion, the question, why do we always hurt the ones that we love? It's not because we don't love them, it's because the stuff that we've taken in, home is a safe place to let that out. The people who love you are not going to push you away unless you go over the line there. But by doing that, we can't enjoy the benefits of family life there. So I know during my lifetime, I picked up a lot of stuff, okay, which was keeping me from allowing what I call the life force or the loving force to come in there. And I learned to process the hate, the pain, the resentment, and so on and so forth. And not just at the end of life, when I talk with Jake and his children, but during my lifetime. Let that go whenever I'm feeling it, so I can take in the positive that people want to offer me. Okay? Want to offer me. I know even as I teach, sometimes I get frustrated with my students. But if I say, oh! I'm not going to move anywhere, and neither will my students. So I'll say, I need a break. Because I get frustrated in class at times. These students are not paying serious attention to what I think is really important stuff here. So that's my time. So, break time. I have to go to the bathroom. I go to the bathroom. I look in the mirror, and what do? Ah! Then I walk back in the classroom. And I can engage my students not through the lens of frustration, okay, but realizing, wait a minute now, the student and I have the opportunity to be more creative. I have to challenge the way I'm trying to transmit the material to my students for some reason or another. I'm not going to judge why they're not taking it in, but I know they want to take it in. They're in the classroom because they really want to learn underneath all the stuff they put up there. So now I have an opportunity, rather than to deal with frustration, to deal with an opportunity to be more creative about the way they teach. Yeah. We carry this with us. If we don't let it go, we are many times walking dead. Not completely dead, but there's a part of ourselves which is ready to be filled up with all the joys and all the ecstasy of life, which is filled up with other stuff. If we let that go, we find that, I'm not talking about being a born Christian, I'm not in that realm and stuff. We are born again, we've reincarnated while we're still alive. Okay? While we're still alive. And that's what I want to focus on. And that's